Welcome to the Take Your Life Back Summit, your roadmap out of chronic pain, fatigue, and autoimmune disorders. And I'm your host, Dr. Heather Yost. You're going to meet dozens of experts that will help you feel hope, find answers, and ultimately start healing. You'll get practical, workable information that you can put to use right away. So let's get started with today's special guest, Dr. Ronda Nelson. I actually was introduced to Dr. Nelson through the Functional Medicine University, and I love that she said, and I quote, "We are committed to restoring full function to the body without the use of hormones, prescription medications, or synthetic nutrients." But before we dive in, I want to tell you a little bit more about her. Dr. Ronda Nelson holds a PhD in holistic nutrition, along with a master's degree in herbal medicine. Her passion lies in helping others regain their health through dietary modifications, herbal and nutritional support. Dr. Nelson enjoys working with difficult digestive and endocrine-related cases, helping men and women reach their health potential as quickly as possible. She recently transitioned to a virtual-only practice, which allows her to work from her Seattle, Washington home. Dr. Nelson has gained the respect of patients and doctors alike, providing relevant clinical information both online and at her sold-out educational seminars across the country. Welcome, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. I mentioned this before we got started, but I just want to say again, what drew me to you is really your passion and your drive to serve and to help others. Part of the summit, and a huge part of the summit really, is just offering people hope so that they know that they're not alone and that there are people out there that are going to have their back, do whatever it takes to help them and get them on the right path. And I see you so much as that type of a person. But before we talk about what you do, can you just tell us, I'd love to know, where did you get your start? Like, how did you end up where you are? What did your path look like to this place in your profession?
Well, that's a super long story, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest version as much as I can. I grew up in a home where we ate nothing but macaroni and cheese. Our ideal dinner meal was macaroni and cheese with hot dogs and frozen peas. And that was your meat and your veggie, and then you had your starch. And that was what we ate. My favorite food was mint chip ice cream. I grew up eating Velveeta cheese, blah, blah, blah. So what happened was I grew up, I got married, I had my first child, and I ate nothing but crap food the whole time I was pregnant with her. And so when I had her, she was extremely colicky. It was a difficult labor. I couldn't nurse her. 2 years in, she started getting ear infections. And back in the early 80s, what you did was you went to the doctor and you got antibiotics. So in 2 years, for 2 years, she had a 10-day course of antibiotics every 14 days for almost 2.5 years. So I didn't know then what I know now, but I completely trashed her immune system, trashed it, didn't know that that's what I was doing. And she fell out of a tree, broke her arm. 4 years after that, she ended up with Ewing sarcoma, which is a terminal bone cancer in her right humerus, right arm, upper right arm. And that was a game changer. And all of a sudden you go, oh, I get that old people get cancer. I get that. But that 10-year-old should not have cancer. There's something really, really wrong with this whole picture. This is not okay with me. And I went from doing accounting work, doing what I do now. And so my passion comes out of my pain. And the passion comes because I walked through a terminal illness with my oldest daughter. Now, today she's 33. She has 4 children. They told her she would never have children. We did chemotherapy. We did a bunch of alternative stuff, and it worked. And it's terminal. That type of cancer is terminal. But we made it. So there's power in nutrition, and there's power in food, and there's power in the way that your mind works and your mind thinks. And there's power in networking and connecting with people of like mind that can help you. And that's what I did. So that's why I love working with women. I love working with children. And I really, really love giving people hope, because that's what the medical side doesn't give you, is hope. There's no hope there. It's just you're going to have a drug, a surgery, radiation. That's all you're going to do. But I love to be able to help women have, or men or children, but women and children are my favorite. And I just love working with them, but it's out of my pain that I got to where I am now.
That is quite a story. I did not realize all of that. I think if you can
Yeah.
connect kind of your passion with your purpose and your path, and you're never going to really work a day in your life.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So obvious, I ask a lot of people, who is the most influential on your path? And you can kind of obviously say your daughter.
Mm-hmm. She came with me. I was teaching a seminar in Dallas this last weekend, and she was actually the first time she ever came with me, and I was so proud to have her with me, and her youngest little daughter, who's just 14 months old. And I was so proud. My heart was so proud to have her with me, because I thought, to all those people in the room, they had no idea the significance of that. But she is the reason that I'm able to do what I do, because it's because of her struggle that I'm able to influence and help so many people. So I really am grateful.
That is amazing. Kind of a full circle moment to have her with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. So how many years have you been doing this now?
I've been working in clinic with patients for about 15 years. So primarily endocrine, lots of thyroid, lots of digestion, and autoimmune. Those are kind of, that's my wheelhouse.
And you recently transitioned to a virtual office at home, correct?
I did. I found that I travel so much, and I'm on the road teaching and speaking and teaching other doctors how to do what I do, which I love to do. But I found that I was on the road so much, and I can work with patients regardless of where they live. And I do it just like this, either, over the computer, or like FaceTime, or just over the phone. So I just thought, I don't want a brick and mortar anymore. I want to be able to work and be efficient wherever I am in the world. And so that's why I transitioned. So I'm completely virtual now.
Which means you can be anywhere in the world, but you can help anyone in the world as well.
Yeah.
I understand you've stated on your website that educating people, your clients, or not even your clients, but just educating in general is huge for you. Why is that so important?
Mm-hmm. Because I think that knowledge is power, right? So when you understand how your body works, it makes you be able to engage, I think, better with your brain. Your brain understands it. You understand how your digestive system works, for instance. So when I eat that and I feel this, I get it. That makes sense. And all of a sudden, it helps people, us, you and I, as well as the patient, it helps us understand that cause and effect relationship, rather than not when you don't understand what's happening, you don't have any way of engaging with whatever it is that I'm recommending, or an action, or I don't want you to eat this food and this is why. So if you understand, then the whole world opens up a lot bigger for you, rather than just saying, take this, do this, sit down here, go to bed here, and just do what I say. I don't like that. I think we have to understand the why. When you understand the why, then the doing is a lot easier. Knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm. Going back just a little bit to the transition that you had from the medical model to, I guess, obviously, I consider myself complementary. You probably do too, not alternative. It's not this profession or that.
Right.
Going back to the transition for you, and just speaking to the general audience, when you transitioned or added on alternative medicine, did you ever have a moment that you felt like the medical doctor should have known it doesn't necessarily have to be terminal?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think I started out already kind of complimentary. Remember, I came from an accounting background, right? So when I jumped in, I literally didn't know anything about anything. I knew nothing except macaroni and cheese and top ramen and mint chip ice cream and Little Debbie oatmeal cookies with the white filling in the middle that are so yummy. That's what my language was. So when I jumped in, I went to everything from pendulum swinging to muscle testing to herbs to, sun therapy. I just looked at everything, and then I kind of found my niche. But I found that my niche was not very well accepted by the medical doctors that at that time we were working with my daughter. One time she was in the hospital, and they said to us, we're not sure we're going to get her out of the hospital. She's super sick. The chemo is doing what it's supposed to do, but we're not sure. She was really underweight, and it's a sad story. And if I told you the whole thing, it would make you cry. So we don't want to cry. But they said to me, you just need to make sure she eats. like, well, duh, of course I need to make sure she eats. And I said, well, what would you recommend? And they said, just give her pizza and a milkshake. And I knew enough to know that that was not going to work. Pizza and a milkshake? Are you kidding me? And I realized then that the person that I was talking to, the medical doctor, what they had been trained to do was look at the body through a certain perspective, right? They have a box that they're trained in, and it's not a bad box. It's an okay box, but they're trained to use anything. If you're a hammer, then everything is a nail. So if the doctor is trained in drugs and surgery and radiation, those are really their three primary, tools. That's the hammer, the wrench, and the screwdriver, right? Those are their tools. Then everything is going to have to fit inside and require those tools. And I realized that when I was talking to them that they couldn't hear me. They didn't have the framework out. They couldn't go outside the box because they didn't understand my language. I'm speaking a different language. It's like if the doctor is an airplane pilot, he knows how to fly the plane. He doesn't know how to fix my car or repair my swimming pool. He doesn't know how to do that. Now, I can't get mad at him because he doesn't know how to fix my swimming pool. That's not fair. That's not fair. He knows how to fly a plane. And if I need an airplane, I'm going to get on the airplane, and I know he's going to fly me where I need to go. But if I need the leak in my swimming pool fixed, or I need my transmission switched out, why would I ask him to do that? Yeah, he doesn't know how to do that. But I think sometimes the patients, and myself, we have to admit that we sometimes get frustrated with this process, but we get mad or frustrated with them because they can't help us, but it's just because they don't know how. And it's not bad. It's just you have to choose where you're going to put your feet. And when my daughter was sick, I had to have my feet over in that medical side. That was what we needed to do. But I also had a foot over in the complementary side, and I integrated both. And there's a time for that. There's a time that we can do that. But you can't be mad at your doctor for not knowing what you and I know, because that's just not what they're trained to do.
Yeah, it's not malicious intent at all. It's really being your own best advocate and making sure that you're gathering information, because don't you believe so much of health does have to have kind of a multi-pronged approach?
I think it has to. Like just recently, I had to take an antibiotic. And I haven't taken an antibiotic in probably 10 years. But I had an itch on my leg. I scratched my leg. I must have had something. I don't know what happened. And I ended up with a huge staph infection in my leg. I don't know why my immune system couldn't handle it. I have no idea why. But I did everything to try and deal with that issue, the sore on my leg. And I finally knew that it was either an antibiotic or I was going to have problems. So there's a place where we try everything. You got to go hard. You got to play hard, go big or go home. So we want to play hard. We want to get in and use as much of the complementary therapy as we can. But when you hit the wall and you go, okay, I need a bigger gun, that's when I got to go get on the airplane, right? That's when I have to go ask that airplane pilot, okay, could you take me somewhere faster? Could you get me there faster? I'm driving my car trying to get there, and my car's not working. Like it's not working. It's too big. The fire's too big. I need a bigger gun. So I had to take an antibiotic, but I know how to mitigate the damage of the antibiotic by using certain types of probiotics and eating lots of fermented food. And I knew how to kind of offset it. So that's where they work together beautifully.
I agree. Exhaust natural, then drugs, then surgery. But
exactly,
co-manage should you need that type of help,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we dig in a little bit deeper as to what you do and how you help people?
Oh, well, the first thing that I always say to everyone that comes in my office is I have 5 foundational pieces that I always look at, and I just call them the foundational 5. The first one is diet and digestion. Those are kind of the first 2. Diet's got to be right. And if you don't have a good diet, then you're not going to heal and repair, and you're not going to feel well. So that's probably the conversation that most people don't want to have, because they don't want to give up cookies, and they don't want to give up sugar, and they don't want to give up their stuff. But I just go, listen, I'm not your food police. I can't make that decision for you. You have to decide, and it's a pain or pleasure decision. either you're in enough pain that you're willing to make the decision, or the food gives you so much pleasure that you're not willing to make the switch. And I can't make that decision for you. All I can do is give you information. So one of the things that I know that helps to decrease inflammation, decrease pain, decrease hormonal swings, help with sleep, help with mood and emotions, help with transition into menopause, all of those things is getting out the foods out of your diet that are inflammatory and are problematic, and by creating what I call stable blood sugar. And when you're eating the right foods, and I don't believe in putting people on a diet. I'm passionate about teaching you how to eat so you can live. Like, it's not about a diet. It's just about having a healthy relationship with food. And you eat the right way. It keeps your blood sugar stable. Those inflammatory foods are out. And I always say the patient will feel 50% better just by changing their diet. 50% is the average. Sometimes it's more than that. And that makes my job super easy. And I look like a hero, because all I did was told you, remove these foods, add these foods, let's do it this way. They get 50% better. And they're like, you're a genius. I go, well, I'm not a genius. The food thing's been around for a long time. You just didn't know how to do it. So first diet, and then I always support digestion, because everyone's digestion is jacked up. Everyone. And patients are liars and doctors are the same, right? Everybody goes, no, my digestion's fine. It's fine. It's no problem. No, it's really not. If you're constipated, bloated, burpy, heartburn, there's a bunch of things. If you've ever had antibiotics, you're jacked up. So I always support digestion. I look at the endocrine system. The adrenal glands are a key player in an endocrine function. And when those adrenal glands go down, whether they're actually fatigued, which I find most often they're not, they're blamed a lot for that, but they're not often. It's more the HP axis, or the brain communication with those adrenal glands gets messed up because of chronic stress. So I look at the stress, I look at life stress, I look at those adrenal glands and how that interplay is happening. And then I look at the liver. Liver is important for balancing and stabilizing reproductive hormones. So if the liver is working, then your body's going to be healthier. And then the last thing is really restoring, going down a little deeper into the digestive tract and working on the gut. So the gut means, we're all familiar with leaky gut, right? Leaky gut's just a symptom. It's just a symptom. It's not it in and of itself isn't the thing that's causing the problem. The dysbiosis or the infection or the inflammation, whatever caused the leaky gut, is the underlying issue. And I think sometimes we go after the leaky gut as being the smoking gun, but it's never that. It's always something beneath what caused the leaky gut. That's what we have to get after. So that's the fifth thing that I go after. And after I've got all those right, they're usually 90% better. And then I might just have a little bit of fine tuning I have to do on one thing or the other. And those are pretty much my 5 things.
With looking at those 5, how do you necessarily, specifically when you mentioned endocrine, how do you know the adrenals are or aren't working? Is there testing involved, certain symptom charts?
Well, I used to do a lot of saliva testing, and I do like saliva testing. And there's also the dry urine testing from Dutch labs, which is also really good. It's just very expensive. The insurance won't pay for it yet, and that'll be in 10 years from now. And so because I'm always considerate about the fact that there's a lot of out-of-pocket costs that come from doing complementary work, right? It's expensive. It can be expensive. So I only test when I'm not getting a result. So if the patient's not improving, then I'm going to order a test, because very rarely does it change my protocol. Most of the time, what I'm going to recommend is going to be pretty much the same thing. So with the endocrine system, the adrenal glands, people toss around this term called adrenal fatigue, right? And I don't think that's a good term. And the reason I don't like the term is because our bodies adapt, and they adapt very, very well. How can someone smoke their whole life and never die of lung disease, tuberculosis, lung cancer? They die of a heart attack. They die in their sleep, but they've abused those lungs for 85 years. Because the body adapts. Everybody's got a weak link. If stress is what weakens you, if that's your weak link, is stress, and it is for a lot of people, what happens is the adrenal glands will try their hardest to keep working and giving you cortisol and adrenaline and DHEA, and they're producing these hormones to try and keep you in a good, stable, steady place. But what happens is the feedback to the brain hears the brain hears the sound or the message that says, I'm under stress, I'm under stress, I'm under stress, I'm under stress. It's not going away, it's not going away, it's not going away. The brain turns the switch on that says, you know, she just keeps staying in this stress response, so I guess we'll just turn the switch on, we'll just leave it on, and she's just going to we're just going to push out a whole bunch of cortisol and a whole bunch of those hormones from the adrenal glands, and then the person ends up getting tired. And they feel tired, a little worn out, a little run down. Sleep doesn't improve. You know, they sleep all night and they still wake up tired. And the other thing that's a key to know that communication between the brain and the adrenals is off is when light becomes a stressor. Light, noise, sound, chaos, going to the grocery store, a simple conversation with your spouse or a child just causes stress or anxiety. That's because the brain and those adrenal glands have lost their ability to communicate well. And so that's what I like to think of first is let's make sure that all parties are speaking the same language. Let's make sure the brain and those adrenal glands are talking. And once I can get that communication restored, which isn't hard, but once I can get that communication restored, then the adrenal glands can still do what they do, but they're doing it correctly. So the fatigue resolves and you start being able to engage with life better. But I really believe that stress is probably our number one enemy. Stress and our diet. I think those are the two things. If we could manage those two things, all the rest of it would probably fall into place.
Ooh, I like that you said that. And I think you bring up a really valid point, even just by using the example of having a conversation or being in a busy place stresses you out or it feels like too much coming at you. That's not necessarily that too much is coming at you. It's that your body is not adapting around it. And that's a warning sign. I think
it is a warning sign.
Huge. Mm-hmm. I also like that you said you rarely change the protocol based on testing. I think that a good question for us as consumers would be, with any testing maybe, how does that change the protocol? So I think that's an empowering question. It
is, and you need to ask your practitioner, you know, whoever you're working with, you need to ask them, what's your position on testing? Because I've had patients come to me and they've literally spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on tests trying to find the one single answer, right? The one problem. You have eyes, you have a nose, you have a mouth, you have shoulders, you have wrists, you have fingers, you have a belly button, you have a butt, you have legs, you have all these different parts. And all those parts feed into the whole. It's never just one issue. So doing a mountain full of tests isn't really going to provide a lot of information. If you start with the basics, like start with those 5. If you get those 5, the diet, digestion, the endocrine / adrenal stress, liver, and the gut, if you deal with those 5, you're going to fix the problem. It just I've seen it over and over and over and over. But if you're going to go out and do all these tests, we've made the patient poorer in some cases, and we've not done anything to try and help them. So the only time that I'll test is because I know what I do works. I've seen it work hundreds and hundreds of times, and with thousands of people, I know it works. And if I do A, B, and C, and I follow what I know works with 90% of the people, and I'm not getting an outcome that I know I should be getting, then I'm going to say, okay, now we're going to do a stool test because something else is going on in there that I'm not familiar with. Now let's spend the $500 on a stool test because now I think it's warranted rather than doing all that up front. I just don't do it. It's not who I am.
Right. Can we dive in a little bit into your basic protocols? I know that you deal with the diet, digestion, endocrine, liver, and gut. How do you deal with those? How do you help somebody? And what is the length of a program, typical program?
Okay. So it depends. The length of it is going to depend on, you know, how sick the person is. I had a lady just yesterday, and she called me, and she'd been putting it off. She finally calls, and she's an absolute train wreck. She has everything in the world wrong. Phobias, OCD, anxiety, digestive issues, can't handle stress, can hardly leave the house. She's not sleeping. She's bloated and belching. She's up all night because she's nauseous with heartburn. She's just, I mean, like every touch point is screwed up. And I said, look, sweetheart, you're like in a 30-car pileup, and you're the car at the bottom of the pileup. I've got to extract 31 cars before I can even get to you. So this is going to take me some time. And I said, within a year, you're going to feel dramatically better. But it might take 2 years to get you back to really working at 100%. But that will be an extreme example. Most of the time, it's about if the patient will do exactly what I'm telling them to do, and I try not to make it hard. I don't make it hard or complicated. But if they do exactly what I tell them to do, they're dramatically better within 30 days, 45 days. And usually it's 6 to 9 months is about how long it takes for the average person to get them back up to par. But if it's, if the long-term chronic problem, like we have a long-term viral infection or, long-term some gut issue or something, those take a little bit longer to heal. But most of the time it's 6 to 9 months, I would say. And so I start with their diet. I give them very specific instructions about their diet. These are the foods I want you to avoid. These are the foods. This is how I want you to structure every single meal you eat. I want a protein, a fat, and a fruit or a veggie. Every single time your mouth opens, you can't just have an apple for a snack. You can't just have almonds for a snack. You have to have an animal protein, a fruit or a veggie, and some kind of a good saturated fat. And those are the 3 components that have to be present with every meal. And then I support digestion by I use digestive bitters a lot, because those bitters help upregulate the digestive system from the mouth to the butt all the way through. And we have 29 different bitter receptors in the body. And so the more we can do with bitters, the better. It has like a whole body effect, really. So I use bitters a lot. And then for adrenals, I support with herbs. I have a master's degree in herbology. I've done a lot of advanced training in herbal use. And I don't think the Western herbs work very well because they're not regulated. No one's looking. And so they'll put the wrong plant part in, or it's not potent enough, and the phytochemicals aren't there. So when your medical doctor says herbs don't work, I probably agree with him. Herbs in the United States, I don't think they work very well. So I use herbs that are imported, and so they're very strong. So I use like ashwagandha and rhamania and rhodiola and ginseng sometimes, eleuthero sometimes, licorice. I'll use licorice a lot. So I use those herbs. And then liver, that's easy. I usually put someone on a cleanse of some kind, get them to eat lots of cruciferous veggies like onions and garlic, asparagus, beets, that kind of thing, things that feed the liver. And then for the gut, that's kind of a whole nother subject. That one takes a little while.
What would you say to the listener that wrote down those herbs and wants to run, say, to a grocery store and pick up those herbs and self-treat?
I'm going to say good luck with that. Good luck with that. You can try. I would not tell you don't try, but I think that you'd be throwing good money after bad. And it's not because I need you to buy herbs from me. I don't care where you buy them. You just need to make sure that you get a good quality. And in the U.S., there are a couple of companies that do a fairly good job. They're just not the top of the line. And for me, if I'm going to put my name on the line when I'm working with someone, I want to know that my outcome is going to be good. I want to know that every time I have someone with a digestive issue, if I do X, Y, and Z, I know for a fact that that digestive issue is going to resolve. I know that because I know what the herbs are going to do because they're potent. So there's a lot of slick marketing, unfortunately, for the consumer, and they don't know how to, the consumer doesn't know how to filter through the marketing and be able to read a label correctly, for example. I've had so many people ask me, could you just do a webinar on how to read a label? How do you know whether it's a synthetic or not? How do you know whether it's got additives, which additives are bad, which ones aren't? And it's on my list of to-dos. I just have never done it. But I think consumers need to be more educated about what they're buying when they do go to the health food store, because very often you're not going to get a good result.
And ideally, you really sort of need a coach, someone to guide you so that you're spending less time and energy attempting to heal, more time and energy on getting to the right path as quickly as you can.
If you think of using a coach you think of someone like a trainer, like think of a gym. And if you went to the gym and you hired a trainer, so I can hire a trainer that, let's say the trainer's was an international like bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder, and the person is just ripped and buff and big old built out. I know they know how to get me there, but what if I don't want to look like that? What if that's not my thing? I have to ask, can you give me female muscles? Can you give me long, slender muscles, or do I have to look like you? Because I don't want to look like you, thank you very much. And if they're qualified to be able to get the outcome that I want, then I'm willing to pay them to help me. My other option is I can do it on my own. I can go on Dr. Google, who's not a very good doctor, by the way. I can go on Dr. Google and I can look up exercises to help me look really sexy, or exercises to help me have flat abs or a nice butt or whatever. And I can do that and I can try and do it on my own. But what if my form's not right? What if I don't have enough right weight? What if I'm not holding in my core while I'm building my lats? What if I have one piece that's missing? I'm now going to spend a bunch of time and energy trying to rebuild my body, but without the right trainer, someone who's qualified and knows how to do that, I'm not going to get the same results. So that's an individual decision for each person, whether you have the resources or the willingness to work with someone who really knows their stuff. And, you know, health coaches are great, but they're just one level, right? They're just one level. And it might be that a health coach is the right person for you to help you with your diet. But if you have some chronic, really a significant issue, you're going to have to kind of go upstream and hire that trainer or someone who's really, really had the training and qualified to be able to get your body in the shape that it needs to be in.
Thank you for saying that. Using the example really helps drive home the point. What would you say to, you mentioned the client yesterday that had waited and waited and waited and had quite a road to recovery. What would you, and I think there's so many people out there that put off their best life. What would you say to somebody that is in that position that maybe is listening thinking, oops, I am that person that's been putting this off?
Don't wait anymore, because if what you're doing is working, then you should be feeling better. But if you look, for the person who's watching, if you look at in your cupboard, you're going to have a whole bunch of supplements. I pretty much guarantee it. And if you look in your pantry, you've got a bunch of inflammatory stuff in there. And you might have even been the person that's gone gluten-free. And so you go, oh, I don't do any gluten. But what you do, the first thing you do when you go to the grocery store is you go down the gluten-free aisle. And you pick up gluten-free muffin mix and gluten-free brownies and gluten-free bread and gluten-free cookies. The gluten-free products are worse for you than the gluten. They're worse. They're worse. It's horrible. So this is, again, you know, if we go back to the trainer, right? This is like, I went on Dr. Google and Dr. Google says I need to go on a gluten-free diet. So for the person who's waiting, if all of the dietary changes that you've made and all of the supplements that you have in your cupboard, if they were working, then you would be feeling better. If you're not feeling better, then it means the approach that you've taken is not working. And you might need to hire out find someone that you can put on your team that knows what they're doing and really can help you. And just like we talked about in the beginning, it's so important. I can't stress this enough. It's so important that you find someone that you connect to. You have to connect to that person. You have to look at them and say, I trust you. I think you've got my back. But if your hair kind of stands up on the back of your neck and you go, I don't like that attitude, or that person comes off acting like they know, they know everything and they've kind of got a, holier than thou or a snotty kind of act, that's the wrong person for you. Walk out the door, thank them, and go find someone else. But you've got to find a team that sits well in your heart. Like your heart, you go, okay, I got it, and I think I can work with this person. That's the most important thing, is find that person that you can work with. But don't wait. Don't let your issue become more chronic because you don't want to give up brownies. Like, brownies probably aren't worth the pain, in my opinion.
Amen. Speaking of opening up pantries, I've been asking every expert, and I see that fridge behind you, but I've been asking every expert, if we were to open up your refrigerator, what would be 2 things we would find every time?
You would always find fermented foods. and usually 2 or 3 jars of fermented foods, and you would always find berries. Berries. Some kind of berries. Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. Those are the 3 that are always in my refrigerator. And if I can find blackberries, or I can get them, seasonally, I try and get them seasonally, but always berries. So fermented foods and berries, those would be the 2 things you'd find. That's such a great question. Good job.
I've got one more fun one for you. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 2 products or supplements would you have with you?
Wow. I would make sure that I had fermented foods, because if I was stranded on a desert island, I could probably figure out how to make my own fermented food. So maybe that one doesn't count, but I would do that. And then I would probably take some echinacea. That would be the one product that I would take. And the reason is echinacea, a good echinacea, not the kind you buy at the grocery store, but a really good quality made from the root that has the right phytochemicals in it. That echinacea, I call it, and it's disrespectful in a way, but I call it duct tape. It just sort of fixes everything. It over time, it'll re-regulate that brain to adrenal communication. It helps obviously with immune function. It's anti-inflammatory. The list is so long of what echinacea will do. So that's probably the one supplement that I would take with me.
I love that. Well, lastly, if our listeners want to learn more and want to get a hold of you, where can we send them?
So you can go to my website, and the website is restorationhealth.net. Restorationhealth.net. The .com is a chiropractor in Missouri or somewhere. So it's .net for me. And if you want to ask me, there's on the homepage, there's 2 buttons. There's one that says request an appointment, and or consultation, and then there's another one that says ask Rhonda. And you can just click on that button if you want. If you just have a question, you can just ask me. They come right to me. If you send me a case or a question that's really, really complicated, then one of my staff will get back to you and say, this is a little bit more than what we can really get into, via an email conversation. But I'm more than happy to have you, ask me anything. But my website's got lots of great resources, newsletter and recipes and tips and blog and all that kind of stuff. So restorationhealth.net. And you'll get a hold of my staff, and they will, can schedule an appointment so you can talk with me.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Such a blessing to spend time with you and get to know a little bit more about how you're impacting the world.
Well, thank you for having me. It really was an honor. As I said in the beginning, I'm always a little bit, I want to make sure that the summits are always going to be a good fit for who I am. And some of them are, and some of them aren't. And this one, when I knew what you were talking about, I went, yeah, that's my tribe. Like that's the language that I speak. So I'm super excited. I'm excited for the summit. I'm excited for the speakers that are lined up. So I can't wait for the rest of the interview. Thank
you for saying that. I felt the same way about you, that you're part of my tribe. Well, that is our segment for today. Thank you for joining us, and make sure to watch out for more from me, Dr. Heather Yost, and Yost Wellness Centers. This is the Take Your Life Back Summit. Take care, be well. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.